Hi everyone, Alex here from OCGG, and we're proud to finally be releasing this pre-beta for the soundboard. We thought it'd be best to kind of show you guys where we are, and along with that, provide a very simple, quick overview of how to use the soundboard as you play around with it and explore it. So, first let's start with what we're looking at. So this is the soundboard as it will appear right after installation. And first you'll notice the very simple folder or tab organizational structure that we created. So we have some major categories at the top: general, music, sound effect, voiceover, and the ability to create your own categories. And by default we also have a set of subcategories that's included with each one. So actual ambiance, theme, and the ability to create your own subcategories. And that's consistent throughout each of these. So just to kind of explore the organizational structure a bit, let's create another category. So maybe not the most original, but we'll just call it Alex for now. And our own subcategory, probably OSTs. I'm sure many of you, like me, probably have extensive original soundtrack libraries. And there you go. So you can now kind of organize your audio in whatever way is most logical to you. And we provide as many of these as possible to help you get that organizational structure down. Well, let's start populating our soundboard and bring some tracks in. So all the tracks that we bring in are going to appear on this left-hand side. This is where your audio library within all the categories will appear. So you'll know that it's been successfully imported if you see it here. And the way that we bring new tracks in is with the Import New Tracks. So we're going to click this. And we're going to find whatever MP3s we can. So right here, I just kind of had a default to some of my favorite evocation spells that I like to play with in MP3 format. And we'll just bring all of these three. And actually, you know what? Let's bring it into the appropriate category. So I like to do actual sound effect. I'll bring these in. Click open. There you go. They're in. Now, with the Kickstarter, we originally supplied everyone with WAV files. However, we're going to go ahead and re-release all the audio as MP3s. So you guys don't have to do any converting. We'll do it for you. So if you go back to your link that we provided, you'll see a copy of the MP3 version of the tracks there. All right, well, we got some MP3s into our soundboard here on the left-hand side. So let's just cover some basic track usage. We try to make this as intuitive as possible. So hopefully everyone's kind of familiar with what they're seeing here. You've got your standard play, the pause, we have stop, which restarts the track at the beginning. We have a loop option, which means when the track gets to the end, it will restart automatically. We have independent volume control, which means if you don't want to change the system volume on your computer, you can simply change the volume of that track right here. And lastly, if you want to remove a track on the soundboard, you can use this X at the top right of each track. So now let's talk about one of the coolest, funnest, and most powerful aspects of the soundboard, and that's dynamic track cropping. What that lets you do is simply using a slider, you're going to be able to isolate a specific part of a track. What this lets you do, it gets a lot more mileage from whatever audio you bring into the soundboard by being able to use specific pieces for other uses. For instance, let's say I don't specifically want a fireball spell right now. I want to create a scene where catapults are lobbing fiery pitch onto a siege. So how would I go about doing that? Well, let's play around with the fireball track a little bit. Let's first hear the track so you know what we have to work with. All right, pretty cool, right? We can hear a wind up to the spell, a toss, a blast, and then the rumbling after effects. Now, for my catapult siege scene, I don't necessarily need the wind up for the spell. I want the toss, the blast, and the rumbling. So I can crop this track dynamically and from the beginning and slide it to about 4 seconds. That should get rid of the wind up for me. Now, if I play this, I should have what I'm looking for. There it is. That's the toss, the blast, rumbling. I have my catapult lobbing pitch perfectly. Now, I don't have to stop there. I can also crop from the back. Maybe I don't want all that rumbling. Maybe I want to stop the rumbling a little sooner so I can play something else. So I can crop it from the back, and let's see what we have now. Cool. Now, why is this so awesome? Well, as a DM who's trying to create memorable scenes using audio, I now have a whole world of possibilities with a combination of cropping, looping, independent volume control. I can now take bits of audio that were perhaps intended for something else and make whole new scenes with them, as we saw here with using the fireball spell and now making a catapult lobbing pitch. All right, so we covered the left-hand side of the soundboard. Now let's get into the super crazy, super fun stuff, and that's the right hand of the soundboard or the mixer. So by default, this is what you're going to see. 2 default mix lists or playlists, whatever you like to call them. We're kind of calling them fantasy music lists, but that's likely going to change. But what this does is it lets you store a mix, and we'll show you a little bit of that in a little bit. But as a DM, you can set up a whole series of tracks to play in sequential order and save it on one of these lists. So when that scene comes up with a single push of a button, your whole scene can unfold. For now, we're just going to create a new list here. We're going to go to the bottom where it says Add New Group. We're going to mouse over that. I'm going to call this one Siege. And then with the little plus button, we're going to add it in. All right, now I've got my little mix list to play with, and we'll see what we can do with it in a little bit. Okay, so before we start making a chaotic siege scene, let's try to familiarize ourselves with the basic usage of the mixer. So I'm going to just go into one of these default favorite track lists or favorite music lists, and we're just going to kind of go through some of the basic structure of the mix and how to set up what we call master and subordinate tracks. So let's just open one of these up. And we notice that there is this particular UI overlay called Master Player. This is simply meant to signify that every mix needs to start with what we call a master track. What a master track is, it's essentially the foundation or the building block of an entire mix. In many respects, it sets the maximum length of a mix. And all subordinate tracks, which we'll add in a little bit, will play off of where the master track currently is. So let's just kind of throw something out there randomly to show you how this basically works. So let's choose a master. The master is going to be the longest track since every other track is going to depend on it. So let's bring a music in, which we haven't done yet, a music MP3. Import new tracks. Let's go to music here. One of my favorite pieces is Richard Daskaz's The Dwarf Temple, just to kind of bring something in. And it's 3 minutes and 4 seconds long. And we're going to bring this over using the little green and brown mouse arrow as our master. There it is. Just as before, we could play and pause and do everything that we did on the left-hand side we can do on the mix itself. And stop it, pause it. So, you can play it on both sides. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add what we call subordinate tracks. And we're just going to add some sound effects. It probably doesn't, this mix probably doesn't make sense. Again, it's just for illustration purposes. We have some disintegrate sound effects from a spell here that's 18 seconds long. So we're going to use that arrow again. And now every track that's added, and you can add multiple copies of the same one, is a subordinate track. What that means is each subordinate track will start to play when the master track reaches where we have the subordinate set. I know that's kind of a mouthful. Let me explain. So we're going to have, to just start with some basic mix. Let's just get rid of the other two. And let's have this disintegrate track play in the first 7 seconds of the music score that we're going to be playing. In order to play the entire mix, we're going to hit play all. Didn't make sense to have a disintegrate spell play in the middle of such a wonderful dwarf temple piece, but you kind of get how it works. Once the master track hits 7 seconds, it's signaled to the subordinate track to start playing. Now you can of course also bring over a cropped version of a subordinate track, which we're going to show you in a little bit with Siege. But you can add multiple instances, set them to wherever you like, and pretty soon you're going to have quite a rich tapestry of tracks playing. Again, I'm not quite sure why dwarf priests would want to disintegrate 3 people at their congregation, but there you go. Now, along with the play all, you could also simply play the tracks as you would on the left-hand side. We can simply just play, for example, one of the subordinates independently. Or we can just play the master without it triggering any of the subordinates. As you saw, we hit about 10 seconds there, and it didn't trigger the first or third subordinate since we just clicked play on the master. You need to click play all for the subordinates to work. Also, we have a loop option here, and essentially what that does is whenever the master reaches the end, it will replay the master again and once again trigger any subordinates that you have set up. Now that we have the basics of mixing, let's try a different type of mix. Let's just mix sound effects. In particular, that Siege scene that I was talking about earlier. So let's take the scroll bar, go to the bottom, the Siege mix list that we created before, and that brings me to selecting a master track, as always. Now, when you're just mixing sound effects, and you don't want music or other sound effects or voiceovers to intercede in that the array of sound effects that you want to set up, you're going to need a very particular type of master track. In this case, you're going to need what we call a silent master. In other words, just an MP3 that's completely silent, so then you can go and put all the sound effects where you want them to put without having any other audio on top of it. So we're going to go to our General tab to import our silent master, which we call Sleeper 30. And again, that's essentially 30 minutes of complete silence. Now we're going to go ahead and crop this because for the scene that I have in mind, it's going to be very short. So 29 seconds should be ample. We're going to bring that over as our master. And now we're going to go to the sound effects and we're going to bring it over those catapult pitch shots that we were talking about before. Essentially just raining fiery explosions onto the party. So as we discussed earlier, I want to get rid of the wind up of the spell. So I'm going to crop this at about 4 seconds. And I'm not going to crop the ending. That rumbling sound is great. We're going to go ahead and keep that. We're going to add a bunch of these to portray this apocalyptic scene of raining fiery death on the party, and mix these and scatter these around throughout the 29 seconds we have available. And as I should have mentioned before, in order to move a subordinate track around the master, you're going to click and drag this green triangle that you'll find in the middle of every subordinate track. So that looks like a nice chaotic array of fiery death. Let's see what we got. Not bad. With a little bit of narration, perhaps some other layers, we could really make the party feel that they're in some serious trouble under a major bombardment. Let's just take it a step further. Let's really ramp up the chaos. Let's bring some more of these in. All right. The soundboard can handle quite a bit of subordinate tracks. Again, let's scatter these throughout. Let's see what we have now. that is quite an assault. And that's really going to give the party something to think about as you're trying to press on them the fact that everything is about to end. And whatever stronghold they're trying to defend, well, doesn't look like it's going to last a whole lot longer. And with that, we cover all of our bases. Now, please keep in mind that we're still in pre-beta. And as you can see, we still have a little ways to go. The reason for this pre-release is we want to show everyone where we are with development, and we want to start to get usable audio in the hands of real gamers as soon as possible. We're setting aside a section of our forums at ocgaminggroup.com to discuss the soundboard. In particular, we want to be noting our current list of known issues and offering a thread where you can help us find other bugs that we might have missed. Moreover, we want to encourage everyone to share how audio has enriched their games. Maybe posting about a great mix using voiceover and sound effects. Maybe showing a powerful mix of our Kickstarter audio with some of your own, or just a particularly memorable moment made even more amazing with audio that's playing in the background. Along that note, we want to drive that conversation forward. We've been working on a series of videos called Beyond the Title, which helps DM explore other uses of the audio that we've sourced. And now, we want to include some of the great mixes as we discover them at our own gaming table. So please make sure to check those out. We hope this video has been helpful. Thank you for being a part of this pre-release.